Hey, peeps, how are you all? How are you, peepitos? Peepitos, how are you? I hope all is well, or you all are well. If you're not, sorry to hear that. Hope you get better. Let's dive right in here. To this, one of our favorites here, Jules, Melissa's friend. Melissa and your mother and your father, you have to disconnect yourself from this person. They are a liar, and they are misinforming, and they are disinforming people out there about this case. They absolutely are misinforming and disinforming. Melissa Kohberger, Michael Kohberger, Marianne Kohberger, it is your son's DNA that was found on the knife sheath. The defense accepted that. They accepted it, and they did not bother or even try to test it themselves, because when they reviewed the processes that led to them identifying your son, i.e. the samples and how the samples were derived, the STR samples were derived, they knew it was good science. It was solid. There was no reason in their mind to go and reinvent the wheel and test a portion of the sample that remains, because they trusted the process. They looked at the process, says it's a good process. Ruth Ballard here says it herself. So this is one of the defense witnesses, a forensic expert, Ruth Ballard. And now all of a sudden it's not letting me see it. Why? Maybe we pop into it again. Because if you make it bigger, you can't see it. They won't show it. Well, here we go. The item in question, which is labeled Lab Item 1. And why would it be labeled? Because that's one of the most important pieces of evidence in this case. The tan leather K-bar knife sheath. And 1.1 is the one swab taken at the crime lab that was collected from the front strap snap closure area. Remember, all those people who are trying to say it's just a strap. No, it's not. It's the strap and the snap mechanism, everything related to that. As I said before in another video, I'll say it again, and it's verified here by the defense expert. This is what I'm talking about, Melissa Kohberger and Marianne Kohberger and Michael Kohberger. These people are misinforming and disinforming. You should not be communicating with them. You should not have a relationship with them at all. If you believe your son's or brother is innocent, they're not helping. They're not helping the matter by lying for him. An equivalent of 1,400 human cells. And we covered this. Yes, it's 1,400 human cells. What this numbskull does not realize is that's not the number of cells that was on the knife sheath. It's the number of cells that they ultimately extract from the swab. And the swab was used to extract DNA from the snap. At those 2 points in the process, swabbing the snap strap apparatus, as they showed the various areas that they swabbed for that does not get all the DNA. As a matter of fact, it is less than 50% that they recover from that object. It can range anywhere from 20% to 50% that they get from that object. I've seen studies that show even less than that sometimes. It all depends. It depends on the surface that you're extracting it from. It depends on what type of DNA it is. Is it trace DNA versus interior bodily fluid? All these things affect the efficiency of how much DNA gets on the swab. And like I said, it's less than 50%. In most cases, all cases, less than 50%. And then you extract from the swab the DNA into a solution, and that process DNA is further lost in that process. Neither of these processes are 100% efficient. And I've seen ranges all over the place for the extraction from the swab into the solution, all over the place. It depends on a couple of factors. One of them is the swab itself. Also, what type of DNA, again, and the type of swab you're using. And then also on the technique that you use to swab. So I'm sorry, that's the extraction from the object. So 2 steps of the way here, you're losing DNA. You haven't gotten all the DNA that's on the knife sheath, okay? And some gets lost in the process. So it's going to be many times more than 1,400 cells on the knife sheath. But this woman here is disingenuous, and she doesn't want to say that. Why? Because it makes it look worse. If you say, like I said, my calculations show this could be in between about 3,500 cells on the low end on the knife sheath, or upwards of 20,000 cells on the knife sheath. That's a lot more than 1,400. And the reason I say that is because it's a robust sample. Now, I don't even have to say that. I don't even have to say how much was on the knife sheath. It's more than 1,400, and most likely, when I say most likely, 95% positive that it's many times more than 1,400. Potentially as much as 20,000 cells. But in between 3,300 and 20,000, leaning more towards the 20,000, like maybe 10,000, 11,000, 12,000. Okay? But Jules here doesn't want you to think that. She wants you to think it's 1,400 and that's really small. It's not small. Low copy number trace DNA samples are really small, and they're less than 100 cells. They're between 20 and 80, actually. That's really small. This is not really small. So, but it's true. In the solution, what they extracted from this process of swabbing the knife sheath and then sticking that swab into a solution, that inefficient process yielded them 1,400 skin cells extracted into the solution, okay? And that means 8.4 nanograms. I showed the math. I'm not going to show it again. 8.4 nanograms is a robust sample. And before I showed an AI, a Google AI, I know Viviana says that about Google AI, and you're right, Viviana. You have to, really all Google AI is, it's just, it goes out and does the search for you. So instead of you searching, Google AI just comes back with, it gives you an answer from the search that it did, but they're just taking that from various sources that they comb through and find on the internet. So it's up to you to go and check the sources and see if they have validity. In this case, the source that they provided that I showed before per an AI screenshot, this was a valid source. Because why? Well, because it's from the National Institute of Justice, okay? So this is a valid source. And what do they say about this? They say that DNA analysis uses polymerase chain reaction, PCR, based short tandem repeat STR testing, okay? It's amplification, for folks. This is another thing she said. They had to go and amplify it to make it more. That's what you do in STR testing. It's called PCR. That's the process, my dear. That's the science. It gets amplified regardless of whether it's low copy number, which is between 20 and 80 cells, or whether it's 1,400 cells in an extract solution. It all gets amplified. You're the dummy here, and you're misinforming and disinforming people. Many laboratories use commercially available STR amplification kits. See, amplification kits. It's when you do STR, you're amplifying the DNA. Okay? Doesn't matter whether the sample size is robust or not in the extract. You're amplifying it according to these test kits. And you're not putting the full 8.4 nanograms into one test kit. One test kit only requires between 0.5 nanograms and 2 nanograms. That's a range. On the low end, it's 0.5. So if you have 8.4 nanograms and you're on the low end and the kits you have only require 0.5 nanograms, hell, you could run 2 plus 8 is 16, 17. You could run 17 separate STR tests. Use 17 kits. If you're doing 2 nanograms, you could do, at the high end of that range, you could do 4 test kits. They only did 1 STR test kit. From what we know, they did 1. And let's say the one was, 1.25. Well, that's 2.5. I mean, that 1.25, you still have 7.15 nanograms left for further testing. I can assure you they didn't give all of that to Othram when they sent part of this extract off to Othram to test. You know they didn't give it to Othram, all of it. They're going to keep some, just in case. Of course they are. I guarantee you they did, even though I asked them whether they did or not, and they didn't give me the answer. In a roundabout way, they gave me the answer. They did give it to me in a roundabout way. But let's look at these jokers like here. Let's listen to her. So first I start out with, she's going down this about, gross motor functioning, how Brian Kohberger is unathletic and he's just a goober and he can't do anything athletic. So how could he possibly have so skillfully, off to these people? I didn't realize that to take a knife and put it in your hand, hold on to it tightly, and just jam it in people's heads and their upper bodies when they're asleep and their necks and whatever else is right there. I didn't know that took much skill. And so they brought up the example amidst all this, remember how he lost his job because he couldn't, he couldn't fillet a fish properly. So I said this in her live. I ultimately got banned from the live, which doesn't surprise me. But I said, folks here, stabbing people is not the same thing as filleting fish, and it's not. It's apples and oranges. Or, it's pineapples and green beans. I mean, they're that different, okay? One's a fruit and one's a vegetable, all right? So it's, and then there's other people that brought up, my son can't tie his shoes and he's 19. My son always had problems tying his shoes. We could never teach him properly to tie his shoes. I think he's probably got a tad of autism in him. But he's also amazingly athletic and amazingly coordinated in certain ways. He's not in certain fine motor skills. That is for certain. His handwriting has always been terrible, like Brian Kohberger's, just like Brian Kohberger's. He's always had issues trying to tie his shoes, okay? But he is incredible and skillful with his hands in other ways. And he's incredibly athletic. And he's strong as an ox. Stronger than me. Strong as an ox. Just naturally stronger than me. I had to work at it a little bit, but he just naturally strong. So, I think I said in here, we can look.
Behavioral observations. Context of test administration. Brian engaged in direct test. See? Yeah, I that's why I said I don't have any reason not to believe that, especially when he's had a history of having these problems. I really have no reason not to believe that at all. So, maybe I'll just ask her. If she can answer me, she can answer me. If she can't, then she can't. But I'm curious, and I'll just probably ask her. I don't know. We'll see. Behavioral observations. Context of test administration. Brian engaged in direct test administration with me in a conference room in the Ada County Jail in Boise at a time, generally for 1 to calisthenics, as he during that specific time period, meaning he did not want to break his routine. Routines are very, very, very important to people, not only with OCD, but...
Here we go. So I said, my son is 24 and can't tie his shoes, but he's great at stabbing people. Now, of course, that's satire. I think this is probably why they banned me. It was satire, and it's meant to make a point, right? Okay? Just because my son does not tie his shoes well, he can tie them, but he's never tied them well, and it took the longest time for him to ever be able to tie his shoes. What he does now is he just ties them once when he gets new shoes, and they remain tied for all time, and he just slips them on and off. So he's got a loophole for everything too, I'll tell you. But but it's true though, right? I mean, it has tying your shoes once again has nothing to do with stabbing anybody. Okay, so come on, get real.
With autism, especially, including frequent motor functioning while seated. Multiple instances in this room when Brian had his perception that it was he was concerned he might not make it while waiting for jail staff. Needed to use the restroom. My 8-year-old does that. Like if he's busy doing something, he'll ignore it until like then you just hear him like pee real hard because he's into it until it's too late, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm working." I will sit and sit and sit. I mean, look how long we've done. Holy crap! I had to go pee. And you can drive 8 hours in the car, not stop one time. The second you get like a mile away from your house, you're gonna pee your pants.
And here's the thing. Having autistic traits or not, or being socially awkward, there's this. He made these women feel uncomfortable because he hovered over them and he blocked their egress. Okay, so despite him having autism, he did this. And a woman has every right to feel uncomfortable when that's the case. I'm a guy and I'd feel uncomfortable if anybody did that to me, especially another guy. I mean, it might cause an altercation. One of the things I'd say is, hey, give me some freaking space here, man. And how about you want to move out of my way? And if the person doesn't, well, we're going to have a problem. It may come to blows.
Coming. So I don't really know if this means a lot to me right here. You know what I mean?
So she brought up her son, and a number of different people are bringing up their son and all that. Here's what I got to say about that. When you're trying to say, oh, see, my son's autistic too. Okay, that has nothing to do with anything. Nothing to do with anything. Why? Because your son's DNA was not found on the knife sheath left at the scene of the massacre. Brian Kohberger's was.
I don't really know if that means anything. Just like this shit don't fucking mean anything either. But go ahead and be completely.
Just seriously put it up there. Let's look.
Working. I will sit and sit and as soon as I was done, 8 hours in the car, not stop one time. The second you get like a mile away from your house, you're gonna pee your pants. The second your brain knows you're about to have to open that door.
Would you pee your pants like Dago did when he heard that Brian Kohberger was taking back his plea deal? Remember, he's like, oh, pee myself. Oh, whatever, man. Woo, jeez. Man, if that makes you pee yourself, I hope you're wearing diapers for all time like Donald Trump. Jesus.
God, it's coming. So I don't really know if this means a lot to me right here. You know what I mean?
She's seeing my comment.
I don't really know if that means anything.
She sees my comment.
Just like
now.
this shit.
She saw my comment. So what's going on right now is she can't process disconfirming information. She won't even consider it. So she just has to lash out immediately. So it's true though, right? Her son's DNA was not found on the knife sheath left at the scene of a massacre. So comparing her son to Brian Kohberger, it's just out of bounds. All right? It's not applicable. It is not applicable.
Fucking mean anything either, but go ahead and be.
No, it does mean something. It actually does mean something. It means exactly what it says. Your son DNA was not found on that knife sheath. Brian Kohberger's was. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to use autism as an excuse. I don't know where the autistic people are going with this. Some of them, at least. I'm not going to treat autistic people as a monolith, but they are by no means a monolith. But there appear to be some autistic people who have jumped on the Bryan Kohberger bandwagon here and joined the cult of Bryan Kohberger, and they want to exonerate him based on the fact that he's autistic. Like, I don't know what their thinking is or what the implication of their thinking is, but I'm guessing it has to be, it seems to be, that, well, since he's autistic, he should have a license to be able to kill because he's autistic and he really can't help himself. Are you kidding me? What's your point then? You know, if he has no fine motor skills, he has no business having a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath and a K-bar sharpener, okay? He doesn't have fine motor skills. He's going to end up slicing his arm off or his hand off with that. And if he's this bad off and this uncoordinated, he didn't need to be traveling all the way across the country to Washington State University for the PhD program if he's this bad off. He needs to be under constant supervision. You can't have it both ways. Quite frankly, I don't think he was this bad off, as you're trying to paint the picture to be.
Completely ignorant. That's fine.
No, you are ignorant.
Okay. Bryan ambulated independently. Given constraints of the setting, I was not able to observe his gaits. So she couldn't watch him. I guess, like, walk off, I guess. Fine motor functioning. Right hand dominant. Notably, on a fine motor dexterity measure, Bryan moved his whole actively. Hands were observed to be worked for in January prior to our visit. So he's washing his hands to give them a little bit of moisture back from all the water, taking all the moisture out so that his hands are less.
So look, we got this person says, Rasputin, neither was Bryan's. So she's saying Bryan's DNA was not on the knife sheath. This is in Jules' comment section. She's supposed to be policing the comment section. She banished me from it for just speaking facts. And she keeps this person up there to engage in misinformation. Well, this is disinformation. This is a lie. Okay, and then this person, Rennie Rebecca, says, was it? Was his DNA on the knife sheath? Because the FBI never told Payne it was. I'm not even going to answer that. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So then I said, Dago almost peed himself when he got the news that BK was taking back his plea. This is really rubbing them the wrong way at this point. She was talking about, peeing yourself or almost peeing yourself, and that Bryan Kohberger does this. So I told these people that said, was Bryan Kohberger's DNA on the knife sheath? I said, yes, it was, when they're saying it's not. Between 3,300 and 20,000 of BK cells on the sheath. 8.4 nanograms in the 50 microliter solution. I'm just going to get to where she responds to it before they kick me out. So here we go.
1,400 cells.
So this is how stupid she is. And this is really how stupid she is. She doesn't understand the inefficiencies that we just spoke about of the transference of DNA in the multi-step process from the object of evidence to the extract in the solution. There's 2 points of transference there. One from the object of evidence to the swab, and one from the swab into the extract solution. Each step involves the loss of DNA, or the first step, you don't get all the DNA. Not anywhere near do you get all the DNA. And then the second step is when you put it in the solution only extracts a certain percentage of it. It's inefficient. And it depends on a number of factors. So that's why my calculation came up with a range between 3,300 and 20,000 of BK cells on the sheath, not in the solution. Yes, 1,400 cells equivalent of cells in the extract solution, but on the sheath is a different number entirely. She cannot wrap her head around this. She will not let this disconfirming information enter her thick skull. And also I say that it's 8.5 nanograms in the 50 microliter extract solution. She's saying, no, it's not. You have 400 cells. Only 400 cells. That's what they said. We're going to show you what Ruth Ballard says in a second about this.
And they had to do like hella magnification to even get it to testing level.
They do amplification anytime you do an STR test. What do you not understand about that? And I just showed you, but you won't listen, and you're I won't even call them peeps. They don't get the honor of being called peeps. These trolls of yours, they will not accept facts. They're called STR amplification kits. That's what they use when they do STR testing. It amplifies. Good grief. Learn. Try to learn. And Marianne and Mike and Melissa, look at this. This is not right. It's not right.
But go ahead and keep being actually ignorant and show us that you can't read, because
you're ignorant. I read it. I see where it says 1,400. You are correct in that regard, only in the sense that it's in the extract solution. 1,400 equivalent cells, which equates to 8.4 nanograms, which is a robust extract. Way more than enough that is needed for one test or two tests or three tests or four.
The amount of cells is literally in a report.
Okay. Yes. And you know what else is in the report? Let's look what else is in the report. 1,400 cells worth of human DNA was recovered. A single source male profile was developed from the swab. Tell your audience this, Jules, that the defense expert here, one of them, Ruth Ballard, is conceding that the sample extract in the solution of DNA is 8.4 nanograms. If you were to talk to Ruth Ballard right now, she would tell you that's a robust sample. That's a great quantity. It's enough for many multiple STR tests. Anywhere from 4 to, what did we say, 12 tests, depending on the size kit you're using, or depending on the kit and the amount of DNA it needs or wants or requires. Ruth Ballard would tell you, she didn't put that part in the report, but she concedes that it's 8.4 nanograms, which is the equivalent of 1,400 cells. And she concedes also that the DNA profile is at least 5.37 octillion times more likely to be Mr. Koberger as the source than some unknown person. The defense concedes that. So they're saying this is Brian Koberger's DNA on it. The sample was robust and it was quality because it provided a complete STR profile. But let's go down here because Ruth Ballard said some more in her report. So based on the lab reports and email correspondence between the ISPFS lab personnel and law enforcement, Mr. Koberger's DNA was detected on a swab taken from an area of the sheath that included the region underneath the cap portion of the snap, not the top exposed area of the cap, which was used for latent print analysis. This is a protected area where a prior handler's DNA might be expected to persist, even if the sheath was more recently held used by someone else. Now, here you go. There is good support that Mr. Kohberger's DNA was found on item 1.1, a swab from the knife sheath found beside decedent Mogen's body. And she also concedes here that the sheath is designed to carry a knife consistent with injuries inflicted on the victims based on my review of the Latah County prosecuting attorney's interview with Dr. who performed the disease. So she's saying it was a K-bar knife used. The wounds indicate that a K-bar knife certainly could have been used in the process of this massacre. It matches that description. The defense is conceding that. Yeah, Jules, conceding, right?
It's in the report. And prove anything was frozen for the test.
Yeah, I just showed you what was in the report. And then I said, I am not wrong. There's still unused DNA at the ISP lab, frozen. The defense did not test it. So I don't know for sure that this is. I'm going to say I'm 95% confident, if not more, that there is unused DNA at the ISP lab frozen. They had to have done this. They would not have sent the remainder of the extract of the 8.4 nanograms, the remainder, which there had to be, let's go with the high end of the range, 2.0 nanograms used in the STR testing. That would still leave you with 6.4 nanograms. There's no way they sent all that 6.4 nanograms to Othram when Othram, they already know, and Othram, is renowned for this, of using low copy number. All they need is the equivalent of 100, 80 skin cells. And that's skin cells. So they're not going to send the remainder of all that to the lab. To Othram. So they still have to have some left. And the defense did not test it. There's no indication that the defense went out and tested it themselves. Why? Well, because they're in their documents. They're saying they accept it. They accept it. Otherwise, they would have noted here that they retested to make sure. They didn't. So the defense did not bother to test this. Why? Because the defense accepted that Brian Kohberger's DNA was on the knife sheath in sufficient quantity. So, but I wanted to verify whether or not they actually had the DNA still on hand. I want to verify to make sure. So I sent them an email, and they have it in quotes here. Hopefully you can answer this for me. The trace touch transfer DNA sample on the knife sheath was robust in quantity and quality and single source, thus strongly indicating direct transfer. My calculations reveal it to be 8.4 nanograms, which is ideal for multiple testing runs, perhaps as many as 4 or 5 or more. Considering that, did the defense request some of the sample for testing? And also, is there some of the 8.4 nanogram sample left for testing? And if so, how much? And Matthew Gamet emailed me back and said, the Idaho State Police received this public records request non-residence from you on 8/18. All public records related to this case are available for download through our public records portal at, and it gives me the place, I already have it. An attorney for the Idaho State Police has reviewed the request, or the program custodian has had an opportunity to consult with an attorney regarding the request and has chosen not to do so. If you have any questions or need additional information, please feel free to contact our office and give a number. Now, I understand this, folks, and I'm not going to press any further on this. Considering what's been done with a lot of these records requests thus far, for example, these interviews, it's despicable. I mean, it's one of the negatives about records releases, right? Is what people make of this. So I'm not going to press any further on this. I can get the information pretty much that I need from here. And I understand why Matthew doesn't want to speak to this about what the defense did or didn't do. You know, he doesn't want to get embroiled in that. So I get it. I'm not offended by this in the least, and I don't think they're hiding anything either. All right, the records request thing is outrageous at this point, and what's being done with it by these content creators, it's outrageous. So I'm going to go to the documents and see what they say about this extract, DNA extract in the solution. Okay, and we get it. So yeah, Jules said, or one of her peeps said, show the proof. So show the proof that the ISP has extract, the DNA extract sample remaining for item 1.1. Item 1.1, folks. Well, here it is. Here's the proof. It's right in the documents. All these people say, read the document. The document's right here. Disposition of evidence. Let me blow this up a little bit for you. This is the data dump from the Idaho State Police. Disposition of evidence. Items 1.1 and 1.4 were consumed during testing. And this is where everybody gets thrown off, okay? It means the amount that they used in the testing kit was all consumed. Do you understand that? That doesn't mean that that's the total amount of the extract from which a portion of that extract was taken to do the test was consumed. It doesn't mean the entire extract was consumed. It just means the amount that you took from that extract solution, the 8.4 nanograms. In this case, it could have been between 0.5 nanograms and 2.0 nanograms. We don't know which test kit they used, but they can range in between there. That amount between 0.5 nanograms and 1.5 or 2 nanograms, that amount was consumed in the test, meaning the test used all of that amount. Here's the salient part, here. However, DNA extract remains for these items. The DNA extract remains. Do you understand what that means? The extract is the 8.4 nanograms, less whatever they used for that testing. So we're just concerned with 1.1 here because that was the robust 8.4 nanograms, okay? We're only concerned with that here, and they tested it, and they're saying they only used a portion thereof for the testing, and we know that's between 0.5 nanograms and 2 nanograms. We don't know wherein it lied there, but certainly plenty more of the extract is left for additional testing. And once again, Middleman said there was tons of DNA. Tons of it. Now, why would they send Middleman all the rest of it? That's just silly. Okay, that's silly. That would be derelict. Now, some people are saying the defense tried to test it and they tried to get the DNA, and the prosecution told them that there was none left for testing. I seriously doubt that, folks, based on this. Based on them saying the DNA extract remains. The DNA extract remains. I seriously doubt that. But if they did say it, I might be wrong. Show me. Show me where the Idaho State Police no longer has any of this extract left from item 1.1, from that 8.4 nanogram. Show me that they don't have any left. Because it makes no sense to me that they don't. And they should help for an explanation there if they don't. Like, well, what happened to it? I mean, we know, we've done the homework and the research here, folks. We know that a testing kit, usually testing kits require anywhere from 0.5 nanograms to 2.0 nanograms, depending on the testing kit you're using. Well, if you only ran the one test for Brian Koberger on that DNA, then that should have been no more than 2 nanograms. That would mean you had 6.4 nanograms left. You had to know that Othron's forte is being able to develop S&P profiles from really low copy DNA that's not only low copy, but degraded even. And this was not that at all. So you didn't have to send them much. You could have sent them the same amount you used for the STR test kit, which would have been 0.5 nanograms to 2.0. You could have sent them 2.0 nanograms of the extract yourself. And that would still left you with 4.4 nanograms of the extract left. But I don't know that yet. We don't know. Didn't get a response here from Matthew Gamet about the score here. Do they have some left? Is it frozen? I would seem to think they should. And then I think people are saying this because the defense said they can't retest it. There's no indication that the defense ever wanted to retest it or test it themselves. There's never been any indication of that. They've accepted it from day one, that it's his DNA. They have never fought that conclusion. What they have fought is, how they got to Brian Kohberger from it. That's the kind of thing that they fought. Or that, they accept it's Brian Kohberger's DNA on the knife sheet, but it got there because someone was trying to frame him. That, okay, we accept it's his DNA on the sheet, but it was, it wasn't because he was there at the crime. So they're trying to say indirect transfer. And therefore somebody framed him up. I don't see anywhere, and I've searched high and low for this, where the defense said, hey, we're trying to test this, and they're saying they're all out of the DNA. They don't have any of the extract left. I don't see that anywhere. So I'm going to assume, until I see that they still have some of the extract left and it's frozen, ready to be tested again if anybody was ever wanting to do that. Maybe Brian Kohberger, if he gets a trial this time and represents himself, he'll want to have that retested. So yeah, that's it. You said show you the proof. I'm showing you the proof. Right here it says it. The amount that they took from the extract, which could have been no more than 2 nanograms, they consumed during the testing. That left 6.4 nanograms in the extract. And they say the DNA extract remains for these items, for 1.1 and 1.4. So extract remains. That means the DNA that was extracted from the swab into the solution still remains, 6.4 nanograms of it. There's your proof. Oh man, if it's like Sisyphean though, isn't it? Trying to get the living dead to accept facts. That's what they're like, the living dead, to accept facts. You can't get them to accept a fact or facts. You can't. Sisyphean. It's like banging your head against the wall. That's it for now, peeps. Take care, everybody. Bye.